I'm Jim.
I'm Susan, and today in Managing Life 101, we are going to talk about something that's really important to me, and that is self-esteem. This little thing right down here, she makes me happy, and I always wanted to feel happy. I didn't always feel happy. I would say one of the greatest gifts, there's so many, but one of the greatest gifts I got out of going through Alcoholics Anonymous and doing my steps is, and if you're familiar with this 12-step program or not, but there are 12 steps in it, which is, steps is an action word, so you have to take action. That's what's going to help make your life better. And so the fourth step is you make this fearless, searching and fearless moral inventory of your life, of all your resentments, things you may have done that harmed people, things you have built up against people, fears, your sex inventory, all this. And then you share it with another person. That's your fifth step that you're going to do. And what that does is it's going to start to give you freedom. Freedom from the bondage of self, because we become so wrapped up in all of stuff we have done in our lives or that we think has been done to us. So, one of the key things that came out of that for me is what I really discovered, because they have this little checklist where you can look at, like, what part did you play? And self-esteem was checked in every one of them for me. And what I really discovered is not only did I have all these issues, resentments, fears, things, I had low self-esteem. It's like I had no self-esteem. And if you would have told me that I had no self-esteem at 35, working for Levi Strauss & Company, I owned my own home, I drove a 735 BMW to my very first AA meeting, I was doing extremely well in my business. My home that I owned was nicely furnished. I had beautiful clothes. The external part looked good still. I hadn't gotten to all the yets. And I never want to get to those yets. But the internal part that's inside of us, into your core, that is where the feeling was. And I had no self-esteem. What that did is it made me really take a look at the decisions that I had made. In one of our previous podcasts, we had talked about the 9 stepping stones to a good life, managing a life. And 3 of those are create, promote, and allow, CPA. I realized that I had created, promoted, and allowed a life that was eroding my self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And it just it was breaking it down. I was doing things I thought I would never do. Things were occurring in my life that I thought would never happen. And so going through and making this discovery, it prompted me to say to myself and to others, well, how am I going to build self-esteem? How do you get self-esteem? And my sponsor told me you do esteemable acts. I said, what the heck does that mean? An esteemable act can be something as simple. I was thinking about this when I knew we were going to talk about this. As simple as you're at the grocery store, and then you have your cart, and you take your groceries out to your car. Mm-hmm. What do you do with your cart? Mm-hmm. An esteemable act is you return your cart to the proper place where you put the cart returns. Mm-hmm. It's something simple.
Yeah.
You can start very, very simple. Mm-hmm. I want to hear some stuff from you about that, because there's going to be more, but I know Jim has got some good stuff too.
Well, self-esteem was when I came home from prison, when I was picked up, Jerry Cohen picked me up at LAX when I came home from prison, took me to my mom's house because my dad had committed suicide, and Mom gave me the fold-out couch in the den to sleep on. I was just shy of 40 years old. Mm-hmm. I had nothing, nothing. And I thought to myself, how do I build up the self-esteem that I once had before all this, 20 years ago? How do I build my self-esteem. And my thought process was do esteemable acts. I mean, do esteemable things.
Yeah.
So what thought came to my mind, take flying lessons.
Oh,
Take private pilots lessons.
that's pretty cool.
That's just it. It was cool. But so what? I mean, the reality is
Yeah.
I'm 39,
Yeah.
kicking the door down to 40.
Yeah.
I don't even have a job yet. And I'm sleeping on a fold-out couch. I just got out of prison. I asked Mom if she wouldn't mind sponsoring me to take, private pilots lessons, which I think at the time was $35 a week.
Which
She
was
said,
a lot back then.
sure, it was almost 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And she said, yes, she would. But I soon came to, after 17 hours of lessons, it just dawned on me, what the heck? I mean, I'm not going to buy a plane, and I'm not going to use this for anything. It sounds cool to say, yeah, I'm getting my private pilot's license.
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah.
And it's also because I'm now working out. I'm going to AA meetings. I'm applying for work. I am getting a series of meaningless jobs at $5 an hour, but I am working. And I realized what builds my self-esteem to me, which is the only person it really should matter
That's
to,
true.
is
Yes.
to me,
Yep.
is I am diligent about my AA meetings. I am diligent about my workouts. I was going to, at this point, there was a church down the street. I went every day to church. I read every day. I listened to motivational tapes every day. All the things I had done in prison, I was doing on the outside, and I started to feel good about me.
Yeah.
And I was regular in my AA meetings, so I got to know people there, and they got to know me.
Right.
And when I would share at the AA meetings, people actually liked hearing me share what was going on in my life. And because of the fact that I went to church every day, I got to know people there, and I started going out to breakfast with people there. And I was creating a life after drug addiction, prison, the whole degradation of my prior life. I was leaving that behind and building a new life. And coupled with that, I was building my self-worth because I was not letting myself down. I was fulfilling my own personal goals, which were quite simple. And in doing that, I was building my own self-esteem. And that was a big lesson for me that was kind of self-realized.
Yes.
It was kind of an aha, wow. Yeah, I feel good about me and who I am. I mean, when I did get the regular job of selling the meat and seafood door to door in South Central, I mean, that's not something that you kind of point out with pride and say, yeah, I'm selling meat and seafood door to door every day in South Central. But
South Central LA.
South Central LA, but what gave me a tremendous sense of self-worth and in turn self-esteem was that I never let a day go by that I did not sell 10 boxes of meat or 10 buyers, whichever came first.
Yeah.
I always fulfilled my own personal goals and standards.
Yeah.
And from that, I got self-esteem.
That's so good. See, I love talking to you about this stuff because I'll start talking about something and then I listen to Jim's stories and then it makes me think of so many other stories. And it really is about what are you going to do to build your self-esteem. That's why it's called self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
So I use that very simplistic example of just putting the shopping cart back.
Yeah.
Because for me, that was something I didn't
That's
always
a good
do.
one. That's a good one.
You know, so it's a simple thing anybody can do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to look at building a life, you know, really building a different type of life, a
Mm-hmm.
life that was not involved around cocktails and dysfunctional relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there was a lot that I had to learn and a lot I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn how to feel better about myself.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, I really did not feel comfortable making a decision because I felt if I made the wrong decision or I did something wrong, I might get yelled and screamed at by my dad, or I might do something that would not make my mom pleased with me, and she may not talk to me for a while. And I mean, that's very bottom line because there were all variations of all that.
Sure.
But that in my mind was the most drastic of things that I always wanted to avoid. So I had to learn, who is Susan? Who am I? Because I'd become such a chameleon. And I was a people pleaser.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So I wanted to be whatever I thought it was you wanted me to be. You know, is that not crazy?
Oh no,
It's
I mean,
weird, but it's what happens
Yeah.
in life. Whether you're an alcoholic or you're not an alcoholic, these are the basic things that go on in life. So self-esteem was so important to me, and really learning on what do I believe? Who am I as a woman? It also came with simple things like, here's my sponsor told me, she said, you know, ultimately what I really wanted was a fabulous relationship, a marriage like we have today.
Yeah.
But there was absolutely no way I knew how to do that. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have the communication skills. So I set out on a mission to learn how to communicate. And as I've mentioned before, we have a whole course that we actually teach on communication. And I think in one of these podcasts, we're going to start that
Sure.
series of these, because it will be an ongoing series that will be strictly focused on communication. And then I wanted to learn how to make decisions that I felt good about, and that I was becoming a woman of integrity. I wanted to be a woman of integrity. I wanted to be a woman that held myself in high standards of myself.
Exactly.
Of my beliefs. What were the beliefs that I had? Also, what were my values? You know, what did I value? And so I had to relook at everything that emanated from when I was a little girl. And there were so many wonderful things that happened in my childhood growing up too, and so many wonderful life lessons I was taught. But then you mix them in with a lot of not so wonderful life lessons, and now you have this big, kind of just a mess. And you add alcohol into that mess, and now all of a sudden it has just become a blob of stuff. So I had to relearn how to do everything. And I started learning that, and I started feeling really good about making a decision. A decision to, for example, my sponsor said, Susan, in dating, don't kiss him for the first 6 dates. I thought, oh my gosh, don't kiss him for the first 6 dates. For me personally, I had never thought of that. I'd never heard of that. I admire so many of the young people that we mentor today, and especially the young Christian interns that we mentor at Christian Ministries, the Leadership Academy, because their relationship with God is so strong and beautiful. And so many of them I love that innocence, because that would just seem natural to them. Of course they would not kiss anybody they may not kiss anybody until they get engaged. Who know? You know, so anyhow, that was not me. I had to learn how to do that. But that by doing that started building my self-esteem.
True.
By valuing myself, I started honoring my values, because I looked at what is it that I valued. And then I had to start living my life in a way that supported those values, which I had not been doing before.
Yeah, me neither. In AA, they have a funny saying, that when you come into AA, don't drink and don't use and change absolutely everything about yourself.
Yeah, everything.
It's that simple,
Yeah.
you know. And, you know, yeah, I mean, doing that is a journey. You don't do it just like that.
No, you don't do it
at all.
No.
Each year is a progression of doing more of what you should do and now want to do, and less of the old life and more of the new life that you're creating. And learning how to live, as you mentioned earlier, in personal integrity.
Yes.
When you don't compromise yourself anymore, like you were talking about in dating, I didn't want to date the way that I used to date.
No.
Because it never worked out. Ever. And I want to be completely new in how I date and who I date. And
Yes.
so I put a lot of thought into, like, what are the 5 must-haves
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
for me to go out with you? You know what I mean? And so I came up with those 5 must-haves to qualify to go out with me. And then, of course, I had to qualify to go out with them.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was setting those kind of standards, I certainly have to expect the same standards for me.
Exactly.
And this is now some years after getting out of prison and re-entering life, creating a life,
Right.
going to work with an actual company where they took out taxes and you got a paycheck. And then I worked for them for 1 year and then started my own business. And the journey was day by day, day by day. I built my self-esteem. I built my life.
Yeah.
I built my personal integrity. I compromised myself less and less and less. I didn't
that's
let
good.
myself down.
Yeah.
In behaving in a way that I don't want to behave like that anymore. I want the new me. I want the new life, not the old life. And some days the best I could do was not go backwards.
Yeah.
But most days I made a little progress. That's all you really need to do.
Yes.
Is just make a little progress day by day. And self-worth, self-esteem, they naturally follow.
They do. And what happens is when you build that self-esteem, you also start building your self-confidence.
You do.
And it becomes a wonderful, beautiful, cyclical experience.
Yeah.
Because the more you build your self-esteem, the more you build your self-confidence. Now, the more that you've built your self-confidence, the more comfortable and stronger you are about building your self-esteem. So you're living a life in integrity based upon the values you've created, and that you are living a life that is in line that what supports those values. I became so passionate about this, as you well know. Once I retired from Levi's, I became a certified life coach. And one of the first programs I developed that I worked with my clients upon was called the esteem principle.
Oh, yeah.
And here I had just come out of the corporate world where acronyms were everywhere. It's like you needed a dictionary to understand what everybody was speaking, right? So naturally, I'm thinking of, well, what is the first, program I want to develop? And I thought in an acronymous way. That's not a real word, but you know what I mean.
It works.
Okay, good. And I came up with this, well, esteem is so important to me. So what would be the words that would fill? Anyhow, I developed the esteem principle. And it is so cool because it really stands for embrace change. So, because, change does not cause the pain. It's the resistance to change that causes pain.
True.
It's embrace change. The S stands for strengthen your values. So what did I talk about? Is I wanted to know what values were important to me. So I wanted to strengthen my values. EST. T stands for think dreams. I had really forgotten what it was like to really dream, because the dreaming I was doing, it didn't even seem possible. So I started to realize, well, I don't have to limit myself of what I think is possible or impossible. It's like, what is it that I really dream about? What is it that I'd like to do? So I had to start thinking dreams again. When we're kids, we play imagination. You know, you pretend and you play imagination and dress up and all these things. So I started doing that as an adult, and I started showing my clients how they could do that, right? So you have embrace in change, strengthen values, think dreams, right? And emulate success.
Good.
Okay? Because you want to find someone that is having a life like you want to have. That's why I picked the sponsor I did. She had a healthy relationship at the time, and that's what I wanted. And you want to envision goals, because you're now setting yourself up to say, well, what is it that I want to achieve that will help me getting to where I want to go? So you're going to envision goals. And then the M is literally, you do those 5 steps, you are going to get motivated.
Yeah.
You cannot help it but get motivated.
Good one.
So it's the esteem principle. And what that esteem principle does is it builds up your self-esteem. You start looking at what are the good, positive actions I'm going to take. And also, God became such an important part of my life, your life, and then our life in our marriage. God number one at the top, and you had already shown before, God, you and I, and we're growing, and we go here. And so with God, I just prayed for him to show me the way also. But now at least I had a roadmap.
True.
So building self-esteem led me to becoming more confident a woman, which led me to becoming extremely successful in Levi's, which I had not been prior to sobriety, learning how to do this. It led me to 5 years down the road, meeting you, and you were already 8 years on your journey, which led us to come together at the right time, get married, and now, boom, 30 and a half years later, we are still happily married.
Very.
We are even more in love with each other than we were before.
Sure.
And you know, I'm more and more each day, I feel good about who I am when I wake up. The one podcast we previously did was about attitude. And more, I wake up almost every day with a great attitude. And every day I feel pretty good about who I am.
Yeah.
And my self-esteem, I even had this little thing in my esteem principle I created, that there was you had to work out your esteem muscle, which is just like anything else when you're working out, right? Muscles, you have to work on them to build them, make them stronger. You have esteem. I also had an esteemometer. The esteemometer was like a little gauge, and you could rate yourself on whereabout is your esteem today in your esteemometer. And I had a lot of fun things. Maybe I'll do one of our teachings on that sometime.
That was really good.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I've probably said all I need to say today about self-esteem.
Me too. I'm wrapping it up with that.
Okay.
So we hope you all have a great rest of your day, night, evening, whatever time it is that you're listening. And we're so grateful that you're listening to us. And we're just so grateful to be able to do this, because managing life 101 is really important. Jim and I each learned how through our own trials and tribulations and the additional tools that we sought out in order to give us a good life. So bye-bye for now.